I'd like to commend the board of the Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame for their tireless work in helping preserve the history of athletics in Florence. There are some people that view this program as nothing more than an exercise in nostalgia, people trying to live the glory days or the good old days. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is that although all of us like to look back on pleasant memories of the past, and athletics certainly provide many of those, this is an endeavor to preserve history and has a substantial purpose. Because like any historical endeavor, the goal is to try to tell us how we got to where we are. To me, you can't truly understand and celebrate the present unless you truly understand the path that it took to get you here. So for that reason, I would like for us to enjoy this evening and again celebrate our 6 new inductees to the Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame, as their recognition for their contributions will help the community and help athletics in Florence move even farther. Right now we do have some special recognitions because we had quite a year in Florence last year athletically, and as we embrace the past, we also should celebrate the present, because again, that's what's going to guide us to the future. We would like to recognize several people. Some could not make it this evening. Each year, the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association, which is the professional organization of the athletic directors in South Carolina, holds a spring conference. At last year's spring conference, 2 Florence 1 administrators were honored by the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association. Principal Shan Josie of South Florence High School was recognized as 4A Principal of the Year by the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association, and she was unable to attend this evening. One that is here this evening is Greg Johnson. Greg, if you'd stand up. Greg is the athletic director at West Florence High School. Greg was selected as the 4A Athletic Director of the Year by the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association. So congratulations to Greg. In other somewhat big athletic news in the past year in Florence 1, we had 2 state champions, which is outstanding. The Wilson Tiger basketball team won the 2022 4A state championship last spring. The Tigers can't be here tonight. Coach Carlos Powell and the Tigers are playing a game against Lancaster in a tournament in Hartsville this evening, so they are unable to attend. I did speak with Carlos, and he sends his regrets and says that he truly appreciated all the support that the city of Florence gave his Tigers before, during, and after their run for the state championship. Our other state champion coach is here this evening. The South Florence football team won the 4A state championship just a few weeks ago. The Bruins are coached by head coach Drew Marlowe. Drew, where's Drew? And athletic director Cody Slaughter is here as well. How about a big hand for the Bruins staff? Thank you to both of them. Another special presentation is one that recognizes someone for giving to the Florence athletic community. It's known as the Citation Award. The Citation Award is given to an individual, team, club, association, school, or commercial institution who has significantly contributed to the promotion of Florence athletics. Citations shall be made in recognition of outstanding achievement or service which has made a lasting impression on the image of Florence and its athletes. The recognition for tonight's Citation Award is Robert Sanders. Representing Robert Sanders will be Michelle Sanders. After his playing days in football, baseball, boxing, and track, Robert became a dependable and skilled coach and umpire at Maple, McLeod, and Northside Youth Baseball Leagues, the Boys and Girls Club of Florence, and the adult baseball leagues in our community. He was also involved with the Florence Junior Football League since its inception in 1971 as a coach and board member, where he was the first coach of Canadian Football League All-Star and Hall of Fame member Joy Walters, Major League Baseball All-Star and World Series champion Reggie Sanders, and National Football League Hall of Fame member Harry Carson. Robert was also a volunteer assistant coach at Wilson High School for football for 27 years and was at Williams Middle School since the start of the middle school sports and served as the athletic trainer and often worked with the chain crew for both schools. For his presence in the lives of so many young people, the Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame proudly recognizes Robert Sanders with their 2023 Citation Award. Accepting on behalf of Robert Sanders is Michelle Sanders. Congratulations once again. Our featured speaker this evening is Kerry Tharp, president of the Darlington Raceway. Growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, Kerry played sports throughout high school and was more than just a sports fan. He was an avid student of all sports. Kerry attended Western Kentucky University, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts in Public Relations, then received a master's degree in communication from the University of Tennessee. After working with the athletic departments at both the University of Tennessee and the University of Oklahoma, Kerry came to the University of South Carolina in 1985 to serve as Associate Athletic Director for Media Relations, a position he held for 20 years. In 2005, Kerry entered the world of NASCAR, being named Senior Director of Racing Communications for NASCAR. In 2016, he moved to the PD area, accepting his current position as president of the Darlington Raceway. Kerry and his wife Debbie have been married nearly 40 years, have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Earlier this evening, I mentioned that I had been in Florence for 45 years and was fortunate to have crossed paths with many of the members of the Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame. Tonight is a first for me. For tonight, there is a person on the program that I actually knew before I came to Florence 45 years ago. You see, if in the mid-1970s in Louisville, Kentucky, if you could have scraped together $2 for the price of a ticket, you could have witnessed Kerry Tharp and his Wagner Wildcat teammates take on me and my Western Warrior teammates on the basketball court. In the years since then, Kerry and I have had the opportunity to reconnect a number of times at Western Kentucky University, and later when he began working with the University of South Carolina. And of course, finally, after all this time, he's made it to the PD area of South Carolina. It's my great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker this evening, President of the Darlington Raceway and longtime friend, Kerry Tharp.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, and Happy New Year, everybody. Boy, there's a lot of talent in this room, tremendous amount of talent. Representative Williams, great to see you. Mayor Myers-Irving sat next to you at a function here not too long ago. And as Bob alluded to, I'm a proud resident of the PD region. And what a wonderful opportunity to be here. You know, when Derek asked me late last year about speaking here at the Florence Athletic Hall of Fame banquet, I told him I would be honored to do it, and I humbly accepted his invitation. Now, if I'd have known that Bob Wilson, who was an old high school nemesis of mine from Louisville, Kentucky, was going to be the person introducing me, I think I might have had second thoughts about coming up here. But let me tell you something about Bob. Outstanding high school player, outstanding collegiate player at Francis Marion, but the guy never met a shot he didn't like, trust me. I'd like to recognize my wife who's here with me tonight, Debbie Tharp, right here to my left. We've been married more than 40 years. That's 4 decades, people. I don't say hello to my wife and give her a kiss in the morning. I bow to her in the morning, trust me. You know, and she gives me the best advice I can get. We're driving over here earlier today, and she goes, now, whatever you do, don't try to be funny, don't try to be charming, don't try to be witty when you get up there, because you're not very good at any of that, so just be yourself, she told me. But you know, in the 38 years my wife and I have lived in the state of South Carolina, I've learned that this state is full of great people. And there's a lot of great people in this room tonight, and a lot of great people in this Hall of Fame. People that are resilient and people that have a never say die attitude. That's what I found about South Carolina. And I'm a proud resident of South Carolina. I'm a proud resident of the PD, and I'm proud to be the president of Darlington Raceway. How many have ever been to a race at Darlington? Raise your hand. That's a good number. That's a real good number. Well, you know, Darlington is really kind of an iconic venue in our state, and you know, it was built back in the late 40s by a man named Harold Brasington. He'd gone to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He liked auto racing. He came back to Darlington and said, there's no reason why we can't have a racetrack here. And those people looked at him like he was crazy, right? So he built a racetrack over there, and he had to carve it around this pond that Sherman Ramsey owned, and said, you can't mess with this pond of mine. And so that's why the track has a kind of an odd shape. It's shaped like an egg, and that might have been the first form of environmentalism in the history of the state. The first race was in 1950. They expected about 7,000 people. 22,000 people showed up. 73 years later, you know, we're still alive and well over at Darlington Racing. And we really have become, you know, one of those tracks that people look at and say, you know, that's a special place. You know, so much history, so much tradition. It's one of those places that when you go through that tunnel at Darlington, it's like being at Wrigley Field. It's got all that tradition and all that history, and it's a real blessing to be there. As Bob mentioned, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I'd like to have $1 for every ball game my dad and I went to growing up. I mean, we went to everything. And I was a decent high school basketball player. This guy was a really, really good high school basketball player. So I ran out of talent very quickly when I went down to Western Kentucky. And I said, you know, I want to do something involved in sports. So I started working in athletic administration there at Western. Went down to the University of Tennessee, got my master's degree at the University of Tennessee. And then my first real job was at the University of Oklahoma, 1981 to 1985. I went out there and worked with the Sooners for about 4 years and had a great time out there. But then the University of South Carolina came calling in 1985, and I came here for 20 years. I worked with the Gamecocks. And I had the privilege to be around some tremendous coaches and athletes. One of them is sitting right here behind me. This guy used to wear out pitching at Sarge Fry Field like it was nobody's business. And so it was a real blessing for me to work at the university and to be in the state of South Carolina. I can tell you that. And the whole time I was just, you know, loving sports, loving what I was doing. And yet, at the age of 48, I got a call from a guy that I'd been going to school with at the University of Tennessee. He was an executive at NASCAR. He said, hey, you might want to come work with us at NASCAR. I said, well, I don't even like NASCAR, is what I told him. And I didn't. I said, what I know about NASCAR, you can write on a matchbook cover, right? Well, I went down to Daytona and visited with them in 2005 at what they used to call the Busch Series, the Busch race right before the Daytona 500. And I came back to Columbia that night, and my wife said, what did you think? I said, I don't know what I saw, but it was cool. And so I started working at NASCAR, but I stayed in the state of South Carolina. My office was going to be in Charlotte, and then eventually I had to move up to Concord, North Carolina, but we stayed in South Carolina. We moved to Fort Mill. I got as close as I could to the state line without moving into North Carolina, because I love South Carolina. So I worked at NASCAR there for 11 years and went to all the races and you know, was around some great Hall of Fame people at the time. Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Richard Petty, just a great group of people that work in NASCAR. And I really, really enjoyed it and was really enjoying what I was doing. I mean, I had no reason that I was going to, you know, leave doing what I was doing. I get a phone call in 2016 from a couple people from Daytona and said, hey, have you ever thought about coming to Darlington? I was like, well, I already go there once a year to work the race. You know, what are you talking about? He said, well, we'd like for you to become president of Darlington. I said, you got to be out of your mind. I said, I haven't been a president of anything since my senior year of high school. And I was president of my senior class. But I came to Darlington, and let me tell you something, it's been, without question, the best professional opportunity of my life. And living in Darlington, living in the PD, it's something about the people around here that are just special people. And my wife and I just absolutely love it. And, you know, being able to be associated with a racetrack that has a brand like Darlington, Too Tough to Tame, the Lady in Black, it's one of those racetracks that you know, people from all over the country want to come to our race. And we are the most widely attended sporting event in the state. We get fans. Our last race in September, which we sold out, the Southern 500, we sold out last September. We had fans from 50 states and 11 foreign countries coming to Darlington. And, you know, they spend a lot of money while they're here, too. And the economic impact of now that we got two races is around $110 million a year, and $96 million of that stays right here in the PD. Those people come and they get hotel rooms, they go to restaurants, they go to grocery stores, they go to convenience stores, they get gas, they buy ice. You know, every now and then they'll buy some beer too, right? But they do a lot of things that help the tourism, not only of the state, but certainly here in the PD region. And we take great pride in that. And being able to get our second race date back was so important for us. And it's not a given that we're going to have it every year, okay? We're on a year-to-year deal, but we got it again this year in 2023. Two race dates. Mother's Day weekend and Labor Day weekend. We hit all the holidays, right? But it's so important for us to have that second race date back. And, you know, Representative Williams, I mentioned him here a second ago. He has been such a proponent of the racetrack and does so much to help us out in Columbia. And we greatly appreciate that very, very much. And so this year is the 75th anniversary of NASCAR, right? 75th anniversary of NASCAR. And one of the biggest events of that celebration will be our throwback weekend in May 12th through 14th. Somebody might say, well, what's a throwback weekend? Well, it's like taking a walk down memory lane. It's honoring the past, present, and future of your sport. And we get legends, we get the heroes, we get the Hall of Famers, we get the throwback paint schemes of all the different teams over the years. And it's really, truly a reunion for the sport and for the fans. And we'll have upwards of 60,000 people on property May 12th through 14. And, you know, I'm a big lover of college football. I love college football, right? Well, college football is a 3-hour tailgate, and races at Darlington are a 3 or 4 day tailgate. I mean, it is a social event like you wouldn't see. And, you know, you were talking about a minute ago, I think Derek was, about the COVID and the pandemic that hit, and things kind of shut down for a while, right? And that included sports. Well, we didn't have any live sports for about 9 or 10 weeks back there in 2020. And so we were blessed and fortunate to bring live sports back to this country here at Darlington in May of 2020. And I mean, there was only so much cornhole you could watch on ESPN. And so we were able to bring back live sports to the country in May of 2020. And I'll never forget that. No fans in the stands. The only people that were at the track were the drivers, the crews, the officials, and some essential people there. But being able to bring live sports back in May of 2020, I think, was really a real catalyst for us to be able to get our second race date back. And for 3 or 4 days there, the eyes of the sports world were on Darlington. And it was, I'll never forget, I think it was May 17th, 2020, Kevin Harvick won the race. No fans in the stands. He gets out, he does his burnout, gets out of the car. No cheers, no boos, just eerily quiet. And I'll never forget that. And we were also the first sport to have fans come back to the venue. And so being able to navigate that COVID was so important for us. And I think NASCAR did it better than any sports league out there. And I can tell you another thing that was very meaningful that we did at the racetrack a couple years ago. I think it was March and April of 2021 is when we partnered with McLeod Regional Medical Center in Darlington County to put on 2 mass vaccination events. And each time the personnel there at McLeod administered 5,400 doses of the vaccine. People never had to get out of their vehicle, okay? It was a well-oiled machine. And I tell you, and I love Chick-fil-A, and they're the sponsor of the Hall of Fame, but that line that we had, I tell you, it operated as good or better than a Chick-fil-A line. I mean, it really did. And that's still the largest mass vaccination event in the state that's had yet to date. And it was amazing to see people come through the tunnel. And I remember I got up on top of the towers and was watching. It was like an ant colony. People were coming through the tunnel and getting checked and then getting the shots in their arms there in the garage. And it was something else. In closing, I can tell you I'm very, very excited about the direction that NASCAR is heading and that Darlington Raceway is heading. I think the league has taken some steps here of late that were long overdue to become more inclusive and open. You know, NASCAR took a pretty firm stance about 2-3 years ago when it banned all Confederate flags and likeness on their property. And it was about time that they did that. But that was a big move for the sport. And now I think we've seen new and diversified ownership in the sport. If someone had told me a couple years ago that Michael Jordan and Pitbull were in ownership in NASCAR, I would have said, man, what have you been drinking, right? But they are, and they're very, very successful teams that both of them are with. Michael Jordan is with 23XI, and Pitbull is one of the owners of Trackhouse Racing. And both of those teams are very, very successful. You know, in closing, I just want to tell you how excited I am to be here tonight, to be around champions, to be around Hall of Famers, and just to see the level of talent that this Hall of Fame has, I think is exceptional. And you know, I invite you to come to Darlington, come by the racetrack. We got a museum over there. We've got a lot of things to offer. Like I said, we do have the 2 main events, May 12 through 14, September 1 through 3. I'd love for you to come. It's important that we have big crowds at these races. to keep our two events here. But, you know, as I close, I just want to congratulate all of the Hall of Famers that are here, those that have passed, those that are getting inducted tonight. You know, you all have accomplished great things, and you made us here in the PD area and Florence extremely proud. So thank you very much.
At this time, will Chris Timmons of Chick-fil-A please come forward? Our golden era inductee is Thomas Evans Cannon, and his induction is a prime example of the Florence Hall of Fame preserving the history of athletics in Florence and in South Carolina. Whether it be in PE, a church league, or family reunion, most people in this room have played softball at some point in time. Evans Cannon is, quote, the father of softball in the state of South Carolina. He introduced the game here nearly 100 years ago, organized the first game in South Carolina, which was between Scott Chansey, the Florence newspaper, and the Florence Police Department. Maybe you can revive that. The first league in South Carolina, and the first state tournament for softball in the state of South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, our 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame Golden Era inductee is Thomas Evans Cannon. And I don't believe we have anyone from the family here. How about a big hand for Thomas Cannon? Cameras right there. Two cameras. Will Dave Stoklosa of McLeod Health please come to the stage? Our next inductee is Robyn Dartnell Heffernan. A 1993 graduate of West Florence, Robyn was an outstanding athlete, being a four-year letter winner in both basketball and volleyball, earning all-region recognition and MVP in volleyball, but it was soccer where she made her greatest impact. At the time, it was difficult for a female athlete to make an impact in soccer, as there were no girls' teams in Florence 1 at the time, meaning Robyn had to play on the boys' team, where she was a four-year letter winner and named one of the top 25 soccer players in South Carolina her senior year. Robyn continued her athletic career at Coker University and was named to the Coker University All-Time Women's Soccer Team in 2018. Following her playing career, Robyn used her experiences to create opportunities for female athletes that she did not enjoy as a player, coaching the West Florence girls soccer team to state championship games in both 2003 and 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, Robyn Dartnell Heffernan. Go girl. Congratulations.
Thank you, Darren.
You're up.
Thank you so much for this honor. It is exciting for me to be here. Last year at this time, I was in MUSC, recently diagnosed with leukemia. So to be here is more than just an honor. I think when you were talking about the game of life, I think it was Mr. Porter, I think being an athlete at this level and playing really sets you up to be able to handle adversity. But I wouldn't be up here if there wasn't so many people that gave me opportunity. So there's two people I'd really like to thank. One, if you've not met him, he is still coaching, Billy Andrews. He's the men's coach at West Florence High School. Billy is near and dear to me, because can you imagine giving an 8th grade girl a slot on the varsity boys team? He took care of me like a father-daughter. I remember him not letting me sit in the back of the bus. I remember him being very strategic, but all the young boys, I wish I could thank them for how kind they were to me and inclusive of me, and taught me how to spit for the first time on the field. And secret handshakes, and that was back in the days when SNL was really new and I was not allowed to stay up late and watch that show, and Billy would pull me aside, and it was very cool to come back and actually be his assistant coach, and until I was able to then coach the women's team at West Florence. What I'm most proud of is that I'm the last girl to play for the boys team, and that my mom, who's not here today, she passed away in 2018, was really someone who was behind the scenes, my mom and several other mothers, that went to the school board and asked for a girls team after I was in college. And I am so excited because my sister, who's sitting here with me, she played for the first girls team at West Florence High School. My daughter played for the West Florence JV team until we moved at the high school. And now I get to watch my nieces, Grace and Claire, both play, and I am just so excited to see how it has grown in our county for women's soccer and just the opportunities. It has been a great experience. I wouldn't change anything. And again, I'm just so thankful to be a part of this organization.
Will Lindsey Timmons, father of 2010 Florence Athletic Hall of Fame member Lawrence Timmons, please come to the stage. Our next inductee is Christopher Ron Nowlin. Ron is a 1991 graduate of Wilson High School and 1994 graduate of Elizabeth City State University in North Carolina. A 4-year letter winner at Wilson High School, Ron was an integral part of the Wilson basketball program, scoring over 1,000 points in his career and earning all-region honors as a junior and senior, and being selected to participate in the North-South All-Star Game as a senior. At Elizabeth City State University, Ron had similar success, being a 3-year starter, averaging over 12 points per game for his career, and scoring 1,060 career points. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, Ron Nowlin.
First and foremost, I want to give God the praise and honor for allowing me to stand before you this evening to accept this prestigious honor and allowing me to follow the path that He chose for me. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I was asked to fill out the packet a year ago, but going through my mind at the time was that I would not be chosen as a Hall of Famer. One night I was sitting at the table eating dinner, staring at me was the packet, as if it was talking back to me saying, when are you going to fill me out? And so I did, fill the packet out. To my wife, Felicia, my son, Peyton, and my daughter, Mia, Thank you all for your love and support. Your support, and I love you all. I would like to thank my mother, May, and my father, James, Nowlin, excuse me, my brothers, Kevin, Jeffrey, Timmy, and my sister, Renee and Jennifer. To my mom, who believed in me and stuck by me through the good and bad times in my life. Excuse me. I know it was not easy for you dealing with me at times, but I always knew that you were there for me. I want to thank you and tell you that I love you dearly. Excuse me. To my father, who was a hard worker and showed me that things do not come to you easy, but if you want it, you must put the work in to achieve it. His best line was, if you don't make the grades, that's the first thing, you got to make the grades, then you will not be able to play basketball. This stuck with me through college and high school. I also want to thank my mother-in-law, Otis and Diane Benjamin, for their support. One thing I could always count on was Mr. Benjamin being at all the games. I want to acknowledge Emily Addison, my youth coach, who started me off during my youth years at the Boys and Girls Club. She coached me when I won my first championship. I also want to thank Johnny Eccles, who also was another youth coach, who also showed me big man moves, but he was a guard. I also want to thank Coach John Whiffle, who is deceased, for staying on me and giving me a hard time. He will always say, if I didn't care about you, I would not stay on you. He will always say, listen and pay attention and to detail, and you will go far in basketball. He always showed me a lot of big man moves. I want to thank him for shaping me into the player that I became in high school and college. Also, I tell people, when we played in the first round of the championship, first round of playoff at Keenan, I went to the referee and asked him to check the rim because the rim was kind of loose. I thought it was the basketball because the basketball felt like a medicine ball and it was real heavy. So the referee said, if they can shoot on those ragged rims and they can shoot that medicine ball, y'all better go and play or y'all gonna lose. So I went back to the team. I said, the referee said, we better go ahead and play. If we don't, we're gonna lose, in which we lost in the first round. And it was between Keenan and Woodson, and Keenan won the championship that year. In conclusion, I want to dedicate this to my son, Peyton, that started off playing football to finally playing the sport that I love, basketball. In his choice of worst sports he wanted to play, I never wanted him to feel pressure to play basketball because of me. He worked hard at his skill to catch up with the time that he lost playing football. He always ask me, how am I doing, Dad? I always tell him to continue working hard and improving because his dedication, he was always dedicated to the game once he started playing basketball. He also made me proud when he made the All-Star team for the city of Florence. With his confidence built, he decided to try out for the JV team where he made it to the last cut. They went to a scrimmage in Columbia, and I asked him, how did he do? And he said, Dad, I did not touch the floor. I said, that kind of rocked me to the core. But this was the first time I ever seen my son hurt and disappointed, literally. Excuse me. The thing that stopped me from going to the coach was my twin sister. Yeah, she stopped me from going talking to the coach. She always would tell me that you understood how I felt. She understood how I felt, but she reminded me that she was the oldest and I needed to listen to her. She always tells me that to this day. Since this happened, Peyton has lost interest in playing basketball, saying, Dad, what is the use of trying out for the team when the team is already picked and newcomers don't even get a fair chance of showing their skills? But nevertheless, he is my son. I would love you with or without sports. This is why I dedicate the Hall of Fame award to you, and I love you, son.
Will Don Strickland of PDRTA please come forward to the stage? Our next inductee is John Thomas Taylor. John is a 2000 graduate of Wilson High School and a 2011 graduate of the University of South Carolina. At Wilson High School, John was named Region Player of the Year in 2006, named to the All-State team in 2006 and 2007, and was selected to play in the 2007 North-South All-Star Game. John continued his baseball career at Florence Darlington Tech and with the Florence Red Wolves. It was at this point that his career was transformed. On a personal level, it was truly enjoyable for me to watch John's transformation. You see, I had John in class several times for PE Sports, which is a strength and conditioning class for athletes there at Wilson High School. I also did the PA for all of the Wilson home baseball games, so I was very aware of John's ability on the field, but I never foresaw John transforming from a really excellent high school infielder and occasional pitcher to becoming a dominant relief pitcher and closer in college. His accomplishments at the University of South Carolina were incredible, appearing in 50 games in relief in 2011, a USC record, with an 8-1 record and a 1.14 ERA, which earned him All-America honors. John saved his best performances for the biggest stage, as he was a key component to USC's back-to-back national championships, appearing in 9 College World Series games with a 0.0 ERA, and the last I saw, you can't do any better than that. Following his career at the University of South Carolina, John was drafted by the Seattle Mariners and played 2 years in the Mariners organization. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, John Taylor.
Well, first I want to thank the committee and thank all the former members or inductees for being here. This is a great honor. When I think about Florence athletics, Florence is a special town sports-wise. I feel like we're large enough to consistently produce high-caliber athletes at the collegiate professional levels, but at the same time small enough to where a lot of those athletes continue to bond and have relationships throughout their entire lives and professional careers. Earlier this week, I looked back at all the former inductees, and that proved true there. I counted 20 current members, and that's just in the Hall of Fame, not sports throughout Florence in general, that I had or have personal relationships with. One of those men that I have a relationship with, I want to thank tonight, he's not here, is Coach Curtis Hudson. He was a very big inspiration to me as a young man and a player, not just his student athletes, but his students will tell you that. Mainly his tough love and sometimes persistently annoying positive attitude kind of molded people to how they wanted to be. And he was there from my 7th grade year when I was JV at Wilson. He was the only coach when he was at Florence Darlington to give me opportunity to play past high school. And he was in the stands in Omaha as we won our second national championship. And of course, I want to thank my family who's here today. My mother, Jody Allen, for always giving me the opportunity to play at any level, even if it's when I came home on a Sunday night with a box full of jerseys after spending the weekend with a friend and went to his travel ball practice, and then I played on that team for 2 years. She was quite surprised by that. I want to thank my stepdad, Paul, who became a Gamecock baseball fan and remained a Clemson football fan. want to thank my grandfather, Tim Taylor, for quietly supporting from the stands unless the umpire made the wrong call. And then I want to thank my grandmother who passed away 3 years ago. So she's probably my biggest fan, and I remember this quick story. She called me on a Tuesday when I was in Columbia, sounded very upset, and it's because she wasn't going to make the midweek Wednesday game the next day. She kept apologizing. I told her it was okay because I don't even think she realized Coach Standard put me on the inactive roster because of my terrible start to my junior year, but that's a different story. But her commitment and my family's commitment to being there all the time was second to none. And then lastly, I would like to thank God for the opportunity that He's given me and the relationships that I've formed along the way. One of those being my wife, Ellen. She's over there with our twin sons, Nowlin and Woods. I thank God for letting me meet her later in life, because the first day I met her, she told me she didn't date baseball players. So I told her that I was retired. So luckily for me, that worked out. So once again, just thank you, and thank you. It's such a great honor to be inducted into this Hall of Fame.
Will Sean Ellerby of Carolina Bank please come to the stage? Our next inductee is Adam Mark Wade. Adam is a 2006 graduate of South Florence High School and a 2010 graduate of Middle Tennessee State University. At South Florence, Adam was a well-rounded athlete, being a 3-year letter winner in baseball and being named all-region his junior and senior seasons in football, as well as being selected to represent South Carolina in the 2005 Shrine Bowl. For his high school accomplishments, Adam was awarded the prestigious Ears Wilson Award that was awarded yearly to the outstanding senior athlete at South Florence High School. Adam continued his football career at Middle Tennessee, winning 2 separate Most Improved Awards in 2007 and 2008. His most impressive accomplishments might be having played in 82 consecutive games in high school and college. And as a long snapper for extra points, field goals, and punts, where you are only expected to be perfect, people will only remember you when you are not. In high school and college, he was not credited with a single bad snap. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, Adam Wade.
Wow. First of all, I'm extremely thankful to be here, extremely humbled, extremely grateful for this opportunity. It's definitely not something that will ever be taken for granted by me or my family. I think one thing that makes this so special for me are both of my children. And obviously they weren't around back in my athletic days, so this is really the first thing and really the only thing from my athletic days that I get to share with them. Of course, my son's only 1, but my daughter Addie, who's here tonight, she's 6, and she's 6 going on 26. So she knows, we come to events here at the Florence Center a fair amount, so she kind of knows what it is and has been ecstatic. So that's, it just really makes it special beyond words. I guess I'm not really good at talking about myself nowadays. I'd have been a lot better at this probably back in high school. But for sure, I think when you look at trying to be successful, in order to be successful, there's a couple of things that come to my mind. One, you've got to try to outwork everybody. And I guess when talking about myself, if I didn't outwork other people, I certainly always tried to do that. The other thing you got to have is opportunities. Which kind of leads me into some people I want to thank, which I don't have enough time to thank the mile-long list of people I need to thank, but I always had opportunities, and to say I was successful athletically or with anything just off of hard work, would just be arrogant and a lie. So I always had opportunities. I grew up, my dad was a football coach pretty much my whole life. So I grew up around coaches' offices. I grew up around football field, weight room, high school athletes. I had access to other coaches from other sports, other baseball coaches, wrestling coaches, because of my dad. So I want to say thank you, Dad, for providing me with all of those opportunities. He wasn't afraid to let me go from middle school wrestling practice to over to Lugoff Elgin high school wrestling practice and get my tail cut, and then things like that. So I always had those opportunities to get better. So I'm grateful for that. Talking about the opportunities he provided me, I went to a summer camp at South Carolina, football camp, and was long snapping, and the special teams coordinator at the time saw me long snapping. Next thing I know, the next morning I'm getting pulled out of camp, long snapping with their two current long snappers at the time before they had morning workouts. And I got their approval, and that was enough for the special teams coordinator's approval, and became an invited walk-on not long after that. And fast forward 6 months, Rick Stockstill, who was an assistant at South Carolina at the time, took the head job at Middle Tennessee, was gracious enough to give me an opportunity to go long snap there, even being undersized. Offered me a scholarship, which was a little bit unheard of, just to just go long snap. Typically, you played a year or two before you were put on scholarship for that. But all that goes back to opportunity that came really from my dad providing that paying money for me to go to a camp. I also want to thank a man, Andrew Hetty. Coach Hetty was a football coach at Lugoff Elgin High School. He had a picture of Elmer Bench above his desk, and I was in the coach's office. Some people in here may know Elmer Bench. He was a long snapper at Clemson back in the 90s, and Coach Hetty said, well, he's not much taller than you. He played for me at Manning, and I taught him how to long snap. And Coach Hetty graciously took time out of his day when he didn't have to, took me to the gym at Lugoff Elgin and taught me how to long snap, and for the next 2 years kind of helped shape me into a long snapper, and I took it and ran from there. So thank you, Coach Hetty. I want to say thank you to my high school football coach, Ken Cribb. Some people in here may know him. Ken Cribb was a very old school, hard-nosed football coach who did not care what you did on Friday night. He cared about what you were doing that day and then the next day. Coach Cribb never, ever, 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 ever took it easy on me. He never let up. Probably could have let up a little bit, but that's neither here or there. Coach Cribb, the hard-nosed mentality, nobody could get under my skin like my dad. I played for my dad in high school, and then Coach Cribb could really get under my skin too. And that prepared me for college football, because there is a difference in the intensity in coaching in college athletics, as a lot of people in here know. And I can tell you, I handled the times that I was struggling, getting chewed out and everything else a heck of a lot better because of who I played for in high school. I want to say thank you to Coach Watts, who's being inducted tonight. Well, both Justin Watts and Mike Watts. Justin Watts was also a coach at Middle Tennessee while I was there. Coach Mike Watts was the athletic director at South Florence while I was there. He always provided the facilities we needed to get the job done. He always hired great coaches, good people. I can tell you, we had caring coaches, we had smart coaches, and I was very fortunate to get to play under Coach Watts while he was athletic director at South Florence. Thank you, Coach Watts. Thank you to Coach Kenny Gray, who's here tonight. He was my baseball coach. Also, Coach Urquhart, who's here, for providing all the knowledge you did baseball-wise while I was at South Florence. Coach Gray, I always remember Coach Gray treating everybody, all of his players, with just the utmost respect. He always treated everybody fairly, and I swear Coach Gray could chew you out in a respectful way. So he created a very, very positive, fun environment to play baseball in for 4 years, and just thank you, Coach Gray. I want to say thank you to Coach Rick Stockstill, who gave me the opportunity, like I said earlier, to play at Middle Tennessee, and also graciously passed along life lessons that I'm sure he picked up from years of coaching that I didn't even know I was learning while I was there, that I still use to this day with my own children. So I'm very grateful for that. Obviously, thank you to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. While we're talking about athletics, I went from T-ball up through 4 years of college football and came out of it injury-free. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for him leading me to Middle Tennessee to play college, which was not on my radar at all. The world was a lot bigger back then because it was really right before social media. I think Facebook came out while I was in college. You had to have a college address, email address to even have it. So with social media now, the world's a lot smaller. It was a little bigger back then, and I certainly grew up pretty quick and got to live in a great region in this country. I want to say thank you to my mom, who was a very hardworking nurse, is still a very hardworking nurse. On her days off, I walked in my home and it smelled great. It smelled like home cooked food. You walk in at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and she just created a home environment that, I'm not dumb, I was very blessed to grow up in a good home. So I'm very grateful for that, and probably took that for granted back then a little bit too much. Thank you to my wife, who we started a long distance relationship. She was in school at South Carolina, and we played South Carolina. Long story short, she took a picture of my parents, and we ended up doing long distance, but she's back there with my son who's ready to go to sleep. She'll make you feel like you're the only person in the world that matters. She makes me feel that way. She makes my daughter Addie and my son feel that way. She's just a very, very special person, and was there with me during the good times and then some of the struggles. And I know it's never credited with a bad snap, but we had Michael Jordan came out of retirement, was our punter one year, so he helped me out a little bit, and we had a really good holder, so that certainly helped. But again, I'm just very grateful for this tonight. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Mr. Drummond, Chick-fil-A, for putting this on. I had the privilege of working for Mr. Drummond at Chick-fil-A when I was in high school, and it's a mighty good thing. I could long snap a football better than I could take your order at Chick-fil-A. Because I tell you what, you'd think I'd have been all right at it because they were like football plays coming in, but you had that big keyboard with all the buttons, and it was a mess. But he created a great work environment. So thank you, Mr. Drummond. And I think that's about it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Will Mark Drummond of Chick-fil-A please come to the stage? Michael Stephen Watts is a native of Woodruff, South Carolina, where he was an all-state football player, and following college at East Tennessee University, made his way to Florence, South Carolina to begin his coaching career at Southside High School in 1972, beginning a career in athletics in Florence, one that would span over 40 years. During that time, Mike became a fixture in high school and athletics in Florence. The list of impressive awards and accolades printed in your program that Mike received over the years do not, in my opinion, do him justice. More important than the awards were the impacts Mike had on athletes and coaches, including myself. During his 23-year career as head football coach and 36-year career as athletic director at South Florence, Mike's impacts were far-reaching. True impact is rare and really can't be measured, or at least it's difficult to measure. I will mention two of the awards listed in the program that, to me, tell you what Mike was about as a coach and AD. First, the 4 Sportsmanship Awards. These are presented by the South Carolina High School League and are known as Awards of Excellence for, quote, exemplary displays of sportsmanship, ethics, and integrity. Sportsmanship, ethics, and integrity were the very foundation of the athletic program he created at South Florence High School. When Mike retired in 2013, he was the only athletic director in the history of South Florence High School. I happen to be the second athletic director in the history of South Florence High School following Mike's retirement. When I took over, Mike's help and input were vital to my transition. helping me with all kinds of information that I needed. Mike would tell me, this is the way I do things. You need to do them how you think they should be done. But he was always informative. During the first meeting I had with Mike after we had talked about many things procedurally, he said to me, promise me one thing, and I'm going to paraphrase here. He said, please try to uphold the integrity and special place in the community that high school sports hold. We don't want to lose that. When I moved into his former office, I found those 4 sportsmanship awards of excellence plaques in a file cabinet. And one of the first things I did was put them on the wall to remind me of the conversation that Mike and I had. The second award in the program that I would focus on was Mike's induction to the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association in 2015 to the Hall of Fame. As we said earlier in this program, the SCAAA is the professional organization for athletic directors in South Carolina, and each spring there is a yearly conference where every athletic director and every principal of all South Carolina High School League members meet. By the time of that conference, my first year in the spring, I knew the ADs in this area. I'd worked with many of them over the years. But when I went to that first conference, I was shocked at how many of those ADs knew exactly who I was. A countless number of athletic directors, when seeing the blue SF on my shirt, without even looking at my name tag on my lanyard, would say, you're the guy that took over from Mike. So pretty much my name that first conference was the guy that took over from Mike. I know some people may have been taken aback by that or even insulted, but I really wasn't. Because you see, without fail, the next thing out of those people's mouths was, do you still see Mike? Do you talk to Mike? Tell him I said hello. It made me feel really good that I had followed someone like Mike Watts into that position. In a conference full of ADs and professional educators, Mike's absence left a void. That is how you measure impact. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Chick-fil-A Florence Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, Mike Watts.
My coach too.
Mark played for me. Mark was a good football player, real good football player. The only thing I got mad at him about, we were going to the first round of the playoffs his senior year. He and the other starting linebacker on the way home from practice that week was in a wreck. Wasn't hurt bad, but hurt too bad to play. I haven't told you who we were playing. Somerville. I don't know if you know anything about football, but we were playing Somerville. After the first quarter, I turned to one of my assistants and I said, which I'd been in that dang car with Mark, so I wouldn't be here today because I think it was 26-0. So, but Mark was a good football player. And Adam, thank you. You read that just like I wrote it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I jotted down a couple of notes, but I left my glasses over there on the table, but it don't matter. I turned 75 this past Thursday, so the eyes aren't working as good. I want to thank the board for this election. It means a lot to me. It's very special, and I thank you for that. I was writing these notes, and I got to thinking, well, how long have I been in Florence? So I hollered in there and asked my wife, I said, Jean, how long ago did we come to Florence? She said, what? I said, how long ago? You know, you have to talk louder when you get. I said, how long ago was it that we came to Florence? She said, 50 years and 100 pounds. I knew then I wasn't going to ask any more questions. It has been 50 years, and we were planning to stay a year or 2 or 3 at the most and move back to the upstate. But we fell in love with Florence, the community, the people, the schools, particularly one school, and we never could leave. Had the opportunity 3 or 4 times, but we never could. Special thanks to all the players that I work with in football and in other sports, not just football. I took something from each one of you. I've met some of these guys tonight I hadn't seen in for a long time. It means a lot to me from some of the things you said. I grew from each one of you. I took a lot more from you than you got from me. And I was supposed to helping you. And I was the one getting paid. Not much, but I was supposed to be leading you. To the coaches, administrators, teachers that I worked with over the years, if you don't mind, if we work together in that capacity, would you please stand? Please. Oh, gracious. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I was always lucky to have people that would give more themselves than they expected from you. And I really do appreciate it. I think about you often, and I tell you, the ones that are still working, I pray for you daily. So a lot of changes and growth in the sports in Florence in my 41 years. I think the biggest change and the most improvement in any one sport was probably girls softball. We first started girls softball. If you had 2 people that catch a pop-up, you were going to win some games. And this was slow pitch at that time. If you had 3, you were going to win a lot of games. But I don't know if you've seen a girls softball game in high school lately, but you need to go out and see one. They're pretty good. And don't think because you could hit that baseball, guys, you could hit that softball. I've tried. They're good. Don't try it. The quality of our teams have improved. We was talking about the state championships at Wilson and state championships at South Florence. I was lucky in high school. I played, I'm going to go ahead and say this and hear you laugh, quarterback on the state championship team. And I see those guys when I go home, some of them, they'll say, boy, if we were out there, we would do this, we would do that. No way. I don't argue with them. I just let them talk. Our team as state champions, we probably couldn't have gotten over 2 or 3 first downs on the 3 Florence schools. I know we wouldn't have scored a touchdown. In the state championship, I'm going to say for South Florence, I told Justin, my son, at home tonight, I said, you know, if I'd have had South Florence as quarterback, I believe we might have won the state. And he said, yeah, if I'd have had South Florence as coach, I might have won the state. Last, I would like to thank my family, my 2 sons, the memories that you have given us. Your mother and I, just money can't touch. I'm so very proud of both of you. To my wife, I said, people say, you know, people win the lottery is real lucky. I won the lottery a little over 50 years ago. You said 40, Kerry? 50 years ago. 51. I won the lottery when I married my wife, Jean. She's the kindest, most lovable, sweetest person in this world, but tough enough to help make up for all my mistakes. She's always been that way. Congratulations to all the inductees. I'm proud of you. I knew some of you when you played. And to all of you, may 2023 be the best year ever. Thank you.